The afternoon sun burned bright over Willow Creek Elementary, painting long, golden stripes across the asphalt as kids spilled out of school gates. Laughter echoed. Sneakers slapped against pavement, and the air buzzed with the carefree energy of a typical school day's end. Parents clustered by the sidewalks, chatting while glancing at their phones, waiting for their kids to appear. It was a kind of afternoon where nothing bad was supposed to happen. The kind of day that felt too ordinary to notice the shadows lurking beneath it. But Max noticed. Max wasn't just any dog. He was a canine, a German shepherd with sharp instincts and a heart trained for heroism. His handler, Officer Daniel Brooks, held the leash loosely, chatting with a teacher about the upcoming safety assembly when Max suddenly tensed. His ears pricked forward, nose twitching in the breeze, eyes laser-focused toward the far end of the playground. His body froze, then lunged so hard that Daniel's grip jolted. "Whoa, easy, boy," Daniel exclaimed, but Max's deep, guttural growl stopped him cold. Then they heard it, a faint rustle. So quiet it could have been the wind, coming from the far end of the field where the grass grew taller, wild, and unkempt near the fence line. Max let out a sharp bark, low and urgent, and began pulling with relentless force toward the sound. Daniel's pulse quickened. Kids kept streaming by, oblivious. But something in Max's behavior was off. His training told him that this wasn't just a curious scent. Max was alerting. Daniel followed Max, weaving through the kids like a man with a mission. He called out to a nearby teacher, "Can you help watch the gate for me? Max is on something." The teacher nodded, distracted, as Daniel jogged toward the edge of the field. Max was practically dragging him now, claws tearing into the earth. The dog's breathing was heavy, each step deliberate, as if he knew time was running out. That's when Daniel saw it. A single, small sneaker lying on the ground, half hidden in the grass, pink and sparkly, with a cartoon unicorn patch stitched to the side. His stomach dropped. "Max, what is it, boy?" Max barked once, sharp and loud, then dove into the thick grass, pushing his nose deep into the underbrush. Daniel's hands tightened on the leash, heart thudding in his chest. This wasn't normal. This wasn't good. The world around them, parents chatting, kids laughing, cars pulling up, blurred into static. There was only Max's growl, the rustle of the grass, and a sudden, gut-twisting fear crawling up Daniel's spine. Don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals on YouTube for more incredible rescue stories just like this, because heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and fur. As Max pawed and scratched furiously, Daniel pushed branches aside and gasped. There, tangled in the brush, was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her wrists were bound tightly with a strip of cloth, and a wide piece of silver duct tape covered her mouth. Her eyes were wide, wild with fear, darting desperately between Max and Daniel. Her clothes were dirty and torn. A small scrape on her forehead glistened with fresh blood. Daniel's mind raced. Who was she? How long had she been here? And most terrifying of all, who had left her? He dropped to his knees, hands trembling as he gently peeled the tape from her mouth. She whimpered, too frightened to speak. Max pressed in close, sniffing her face, his body still tense, as if guarding her from some unseen threat. "Hey, sweetheart. It's okay. You're safe now. My name's Daniel, and this is Max. We're here to help you." But the girl didn't answer. She just sobbed silently, tears streaking down her dirt-smudged cheeks, clutching her knees to her chest. Daniel scanned the area, trying to make sense of it. The grass was crushed in a trail leading away from the spot, as if someone had dragged her here in a hurry. There were faint boot prints in the dirt, bigger than any child's, heading toward the fence at the back of the property. He reached for his radio, voice tight. "Dispatch! This is Unit 34. I've got a child, female, approximately 7 years old, found bound and gagged near the west perimeter of Willow Creek Elementary. She appears unharmed but shaken, requesting backup and medical ASAP. Suspect may be on foot, unknown direction." As he spoke, Max let out a low growl, his ears flattening. His nose twitched, pointing toward the woods beyond the fence. A shadow flickered, just for a second, deep in the trees. Daniel's blood ran cold. Someone was still out there. He glanced back at the little girl. Her eyes were squeezed shut now, as if she were trying to disappear. Daniel's gut told him there was more to this than a simple abduction. This felt planned, precise. But why here? Why now? Max nudged Daniel's hand urgently, his gaze never leaving the tree lean. The dog's instinct screamed that the danger wasn't over. Daniel knew he couldn't leave her here, but he couldn't ignore Max's warning either. His heart pounded in his ears as he weighed his options. The girl was trembling, silent, except for the shallow, ragged gasps that filled the air. "Okay, Max," he whispered. "Let's stay sharp. Whoever did this might still be close." The wind shifted, carrying the faintest scent, something metallic, something oily. Max's body stiffened, and he let out a deep, rumbling growl. Daniel's breath caught. This wasn't just a random act. There was something much darker happening in the shadows of this quiet schoolyard. He wrapped his arms gently around the girl, lifting her carefully. Max took point, ears pricked, scanning every inch of the field as they made their way back toward the safety of the crowd. Behind them, the trees whispered secrets in the breeze. And somewhere in the distance, hidden behind the ordinary, someone was watching, waiting. The story wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. And Max was ready for whatever came next. The schoolyard had never felt so still. Daniel stood next to the ambulance as paramedics checked the little girl. Her name, they'd finally learned, was Emma. She was too shaken to say much. Just a few words whispered between gasps for air. But it was enough to know she had been taken, tied up, and left to be forgotten. The way her hands trembled, the way her eyes darted around like she expected someone to lunge in the shadows at any moment. It sent a chill through Daniel's bones. Max stayed glued to Emma's side. The big German shepherd pressed close, tail low, ears pinned slightly back, but his eyes never stopped scanning. Every sound, a car door slamming, a parent calling out for their kid, the hum of the ambulance, made his ears twitch as if he expected danger to come bursting from the crowd. Daniel squatted next to Emma, speaking gently. "Sweetheart, you're safe now. Max found you. We're not going to let anyone hurt you again." Emma's lower lip quivered. Her gaze locked on Max like the dog was the only thing holding her together. She whispered something so softly Daniel almost missed it. He said, "Don't tell." Daniel's heart clenched. His mind raced. Who said what? Don't tell. But Emma shut down again, hugging her knees tight, burying her face in Max's fur. Max let her, resting his chin gently across her knee like a silent guardian. Just then, the principal, a tall man named Mr. Parker, came striding across the lot. His face was red, breath short from running. "Daniel, what on earth happened? Is she hurt?" "She was found tied up near the field," Daniel replied, keeping his voice low but firm. "We need to figure out how she got there." The principal's eyes widened. "Good Lord, I had no idea. I mean, I saw a truck parked near the back fence earlier, but I thought it was maintenance." Daniel's head snapped up. "A truck? What kind of truck?" Mr. Parker hesitated. "White, older model, I think. Maybe a Chevy or a Ford. I wasn't paying much attention. Could have been a delivery or, I don't know." Max's ears twitched at the word truck, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Daniel placed a hand on the dog's shoulder, a silent, steady, but the hairs on the back of his neck were standing up. He looked back at the field, at the line of trees swaying gently beyond the fence. It had felt too easy, too quick. The girl left there like a forgotten backpack. "Why?" Emma's quiet, broken voice echoed in his mind. "Don't tell." Max suddenly shifted, nose in the air, sniffing hard. He gave a short, sharp bark and started pulling at the leash again, tugging toward the far side of the school. Daniel's pulse kicked into overdrive. "Emma," he asked gently, "was it the man in the truck? Did he take you?" Emma froze, her tiny hand clenched into a fist. Max growled low, sensing her fear, his body tense as a coiled spring. Before she could answer, Max barked sharply and yanked forward so hard Daniel nearly lost his balance. The dog's nose was glued to the asphalt, pulling him past the playground, through the parking lot, and toward a narrow alley that ran behind the school. Daniel shouted over his shoulder, "Stay with her! Max has got a lead. He sprinted after the dog, adrenaline burning through him like wildfire. The alley was quiet, lined with dumpsters and overgrown weeds. A flicker of movement caught Daniel's eye, a plastic bag drifting on the breeze. But Max wasn't fooled. He sniffed along the fence, tail high, ears sharp, until he stopped dead. His nose pointed at the ground, pawing at the dirt near the base of the chain link fence. Daniel knelt down, squinting. The dirt was freshly disturbed. Someone had scrambled over here, their boot prints clear in the dry earth. A tiny scrap of duct tape stuck to the fence, fluttering in the breeze. Daniel's stomach twisted into a knot. Max's tail wagged once, slowly. Then he barked, deep and insistent. The trail didn't end there. It continued. Faint tracks leading toward a patch of woods just beyond the school's perimeter. Max strained at the leash again, and Daniel felt it. The electric current of instinct humming in his bones. Somebody had been here. Somebody had watched them. Somebody had run. But who? Back at the school, Emma sat in the back of the ambulance, a blanket wrapped tightly around her small frame. A paramedic offered her water, but she just stared at Max's retreating figure, a silent plea in her eyes. The officer assigned to the case, a young deputy named Sarah Mills, jotted notes in a small pad, glancing up as Daniel returned. "Find anything?" she asked. Daniel held up the duct tape scrap. "Leftovers. Someone was in a hurry." Mills frowned. "Did the girl say anything?" Daniel hesitated. The weight of Emma's words, "Don't tell," sat heavy on his chest. He shook his head slightly. "Not yet. She's scared stiff. We need to give her time." Max, meanwhile, wasn't done. He circled back toward the field, nose working overtime. His energy hadn't faded. If anything, he seemed more locked in than before. Daniel knew that look. It meant this wasn't over. As the sun began to sink low, casting long shadows across the playground, Daniel stood with his hands on his hips, watching Max. The dog sat near the tree lean now, ears pricked, eyes glued to the woods as if daring the darkness to reveal its secrets. Emma had been rescued. That was the good news. But Daniel knew better than to believe it was the end. There were too many questions, too many shadows creeping in. Why had Emma been taken? Why here in broad daylight? Who was the man in the truck? And most of all, what had Emma been told not to say? Max let out a low, throaty growl, barely more than a whisper, but sent a chill down Daniel's spine. Somewhere out there, someone was watching, and Max wasn't going to let them hide for long. The sun had slipped lower in the sky, casting long, amber streaks over Willow Creek Elementary. A crisp breeze rustled through the trees, stirring dry leaves across the playground. It should have felt like a normal afternoon, but it didn't. Not for Daniel, not for Max, and not for little Emma, who sat huddled in a blanket at the edge of the field, her small hands clenched in her lap like she was holding on for dear life. Max paced beside her, sniffing the air every few steps, his posture rigid with alertness. He wasn't just guarding her. He was watching, like he knew the danger wasn't gone yet. His ears twitched with every sound. A bird's wings flapping, the crackle of a chip bag in the distance, the far-off echo of a slamming car door. Every tiny noise seemed to set him on edge. Daniel leaned against a patrol car, arms crossed, eyes narrowed on the scene. He hadn't left the field since they found Emma, and every minute that passed only deepened the knot in his stomach. Emma hadn't said much, just that haunting whisper, "Don't tell." And now she was silent again, eyes hollow, barely blinking, her little body shrinking into itself. Daniel approached slowly, kneeling down to her level. "Emma, I know you're scared," he said gently, "but we need your help to make sure no one else gets hurt. Can you tell me what happened?" Her lips quivered, but she said nothing, just a slight shake of her head. Max settled beside her, resting his chin on her foot. It was a small, quiet gesture, but it seemed to ground her. Her tiny fingers reached out, hesitated, then sank into Max's fur like it was the only safe place left in the world. Daniel's radio crackled. "Unit 34, we got surveillance footage from the back gate. Sending it over now." Daniel stood up quickly, heading to the laptop in the cruiser. He clicked play, heart thudding in his chest. The footage was grainy but clear enough. A white pickup truck, idling near the fence. A man in a ball cap and hoodie moved fast, pulling something, someone, from the truck bed and hauling them toward the field. The timestamp showed it was just after 2:45 p.m., right when school was letting out. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Emma. But the man's face, blurry, hidden by the cap. It could have been anyone, then something else. As the truck pulled away, a small shape darted from the far side of the field toward the woods. It was quick, barely a flicker, but Max, standing at Daniel's side, let out a low, rumbling growl. His eyes were locked on the screen, ears up, body tense. "You see that?" Daniel muttered under his breath. Max let out a soft woof, as if confirming what Daniel feared. There was someone else. They didn't have much to go on, but Daniel knew. Max's instincts were never wrong. The dog tugged at the leash, eager, nose to the ground, pulling him toward the tree line at the far edge of the field where the grass gave way to thick woods. Daniel hesitated, glancing back at the paramedics. Emma sat quietly, her blanket pulled tight, eyes wide, and staring at Max like she knew the dog was onto something. "Stay with her." Daniel called to Deputy Mills. Then, gripping the leash, he followed Max into the trees. The woods were still, eerily so. The air smelled like pine needles and damp earth. Max moved like a shadow, sniffing low, ears pricked, tail stiff. He was locked in, every step measured, his body language screaming, "Follow me now." Daniel's boots crunched over leaves, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet. A squirrel darted up a tree, making his heart leap, but Max didn't flinch. He was focused, nose twitching, eyes sharp. They pushed deeper, the branches clawing at Daniel's sleeves. The light dimmed under the canopy, and the tension in the air grew heavier with each step. Then Max stopped. His body went rigid, nose pointing straight ahead. Daniel followed his gaze, and there, wedged between two tree roots, was a crumpled piece of paper. Daniel crouched, carefully pulling it out. The edges were dirty and torn, but the words, scrawled in uneven, shaky handwriting, were clear. "Next time, no mistakes. For PM, don't screw this up." Daniel's blood ran cold. Max whined softly, pacing in a small circle, nose working furiously as if searching for more. Daniel's eyes swept the area, pulse hammering in his ears. A sound, a faint crack of a branch, made him freeze. Max swung around, teeth bared, growling deep and low. Daniel spun toward the sound, eyes scanning the trees. For a split second, he thought he saw movement, a flicker of dark fabric vanishing behind a trunk. "Stop," he shouted, voice sharp and commanding. Max lunged, straining hard, barking furiously. But there was nothing, just the whisper of the wind, the rustle of leaves. Daniel's heart raced. Someone was watching them. He glanced down at the note again, then back at Max, who was pacing now, agitated. They weren't just dealing with a random kidnapping. This was planned, organized, and 4 p.m. was coming fast. By the time they made it back to the field, the sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the grass. Emma was sitting up now, her eyes wide and glued to Daniel like she was waiting for an answer he couldn't yet give. Daniel knelt beside her again. "Emma, do you know what 4 p.m. means? Is there someone else they're going to take?" He pressed gently. Emma swallowed hard, a tear slipping down her cheek. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lily." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Who's Lily?" Emma looked up at him, her voice so small it barely reached him. "My best friend. They told me if I didn't stay quiet, they'd take her next." Daniel felt a wave of cold dread wash over him. Max, as if understanding the urgency, barked once, sharp, insistent, then looked toward the far end of the playground where a group of kids had started to gather for after-school pickup. The clock on the school's bell tower ticked toward 4 p.m., and Daniel knew they had to move fast. The clock on the bell tower struck 3:50 p.m. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as the weight of Emma's words hung heavy in the air. "Lily, they're going to take Lily." The fear in Emma's voice wasn't just a scared kid's imagination. It was raw, real, and Daniel knew deep down that if they didn't act fast, they'd be too late. Max let out a sharp bark, his eyes locked on the far end of the field where the after-school pickup line buzzed with activity. Parents chatted, Kids played tag near the benches, and teachers stood on the sidewalk waving goodbye to the last stragglers. It all looked so normal, so safe on the surface. But Daniel knew better. Somewhere in that crowd, danger was waiting, hiding. Max strained at the leash, pulling toward the pickup area. Daniel gripped the handle tighter, adrenaline surging. "Come on, Max," he muttered under his breath. They moved fast, weaving through clusters of kids and parents, Daniel's eyes scanning every face. Max's nose worked overtime, sniffing the air like it held secrets only he could smell. Emma trailed behind with Deputy Mills, clutching her blanket, her gaze darting nervously from face to face. She kept whispering Lily's name under her breath like it was a prayer. Daniel's radio crackled to life. "Unit 34, this is dispatch. Any updates on the situation?" He pressed a button, voice tight. "Possible second target, a girl named Lily. We're canvassing the area. We'll update." Max lunged suddenly, barking at a dark sedan parked along the curb. A man inside flinched, dropping something in his lap. A phone? A camera? Daniel couldn't tell. The man's eyes darted to the rearview mirror, and in a split second, the engine roared to life. "Hey!" Daniel shouted, waving his badge. But the car peeled away, tires screeching, weaving dangerously through the parking lot. Max barked furiously, clawing at the pavement as if begging to give chase. Daniel's stomach twisted. He couldn't leave the schoolyard unguarded. "Get a bolo on that car," he yelled into the radio. Dark sedan, plates unknown, driver white male, mid-30s, ball cap. Deputy Mills radioed it in, her voice clipped with urgency. Max was still locked in, nose twitching, tail straight like an arrow. Daniels got told him the guy in the car wasn't the only piece of this puzzle. And then he saw her, Lily. She stood near the bike racks, pink backpack slung over one shoulder, chatting with a friend. She looked so small in that moment, so completely unaware of the storm swirling around her. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Max bolted forward, barking loudly. Daniel let him go. "Lily," Daniel called out, his voice cutting through the chatter like a siren. The girl froze, turning toward them with wide, startled eyes. And that's when Daniel saw the man. He was just behind the bike racks, blending into the crowd like a shadow. Dark hoodie, sunglasses, a baseball cap pulled low. His hand was reaching out, fingers inches from Lily's backpack strap. "Hey!" Daniel bellowed, sprinting forward. Max exploded into a full sprint, barking like a thunderclap. The man's head snapped up, and for the briefest moment, Daniel caught a glimpse of his face. Sharp jawline, scruffy beard, eyes cold and calculating. Then he bolted, shoving past a group of kids, knocking a mom sideways as he ran toward the woods. Max tore after him, leash slipping from Daniel's hands. "Max, go get him." Daniel followed, heart hammering, legs burning as he sprinted after the blur of fur and denim weaving through the trees. Behind them, chaos erupted. Teachers screamed, kids cried, cars honked, but Daniel barely heard it. All he could see was Max, powerful and focused, closing the gap between him and the suspect. The man was fast, but Max was faster. The dog's muscles coiled and snapped like a spring, his paws barely touching the ground. He launched himself forward, teeth bared, and caught the man's sleeve just as they reached the edge of the woods. The man howled in shock, twisting, trying to shake Max off, but the dog held firm, jaws locked like a vice. They tumbled into the dirt, a blur of flailing limbs and snapping teeth. Daniel closed in, breath ragged, adrenaline roaring in his veins. "Get on the ground," he shouted, drawing his weapon. But the man fought like a wild animal, twisting hard enough to rip the fabric of his hoodie, leaving Max with a mouthful of cloth as he scrambled to his feet. Max lunged again, but the man swung wildly, catching Max across the snout with an elbow. The dog yelped but didn't back down. Daniel tackled the suspect just as he tried to break free, slamming him hard into the dirt. The man thrashed, fists swinging, but Daniel pinned it with every ounce of strength he had, Max snarling inches from the man's face. "You're done," Daniel growled. The man froze, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. For a moment, There was only heavy breathing, the sound of the woods closing in. Max's growl faded to a low rumble. His gaze locked on the man like a warning. Move an inch, and I'll let him finish what he started. Daniel cuffed him, breathing hard. Who are you? He demanded. But the man just smirked, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek, his eyes flicking to Max, then to Daniel. You don't know what you're messing with, he muttered. Daniel's pulse spiked. What's going on? Who sent you? The man clamped his jaw shut, stubborn and silent. Back at the school, Lily sat safe, though shaken, in the arms of her mom. Emma sat nearby, watching quietly, her eyes glued to Max like he was her lifeline. Daniel radioed in the arrest, his voice tight. We've got him. Suspect in custody. Sending backup for transport. Max sat next to him, panting heavily, tail thumping once on the ground. Daniel scratched behind his ears. You're the best partner I could ask for, he whispered. Max licked his hand, eyes soft but still alert. And Daniel knew this wasn't over. The man in the hoodie wasn't working alone. That smirk, that cold look, it was the kind of thing that said, I'm just the messenger. The clock might have ticked past 4 p.m., but the real danger was still out there, waiting, watching, planning, and Max was ready. The sun had slipped below the tree line, casting the schoolyard in a soft amber glow. The sirens had long since faded. The last of the parents had taken their kids home, and the campus was eerily quiet now. The only sounds were the soft rustling of leaves in the wind and the steady thump of Max's tail against the ground as he sat beside Daniel. Still on alert, still watching. Daniel leaned against a patrol car, arms folded, eyes locked on the suspect in the back seat. The man stared straight ahead, jaw tight, lips pressed in a thin, defiant line. He hadn't said a word since they cuffed him, just sat there like a coiled spring, eyes cold and calculating. Emma sat nearby, wrapped in her blanket, her small hands gripping a cup of cocoa Deputy Mills had brought her. She wasn't saying much either, just watching the man with wide, haunted eyes. And then there was Lily, sitting close to her mom on the curb, still trembling, but safer now. Daniel knew better than to feel relieved. This wasn't over. Not even close. Max shifted, letting out a low, uneasy grumble. Daniel scratched behind his ears, feeling the dog's tension like a live wire. You smell something, boy? Daniel asked softly. Max's nose twitched, eyes fixed on a man in the back seat. His body was stiff, ears pricked forward, his entire posture screaming danger. Daniel's gut twisted. He'd learned to trust Max's instincts. Always. He walked over to the car, opened the door, and leaned in. Let's try this again, he said, voice calm but firm. Who are you working with? The man turned slowly, a smirk curling at the corner of his mouth. You think you've stopped something? He said, voice low and gravelly. But you're late. Way too late. Daniel's stomach dropped. Max barked once, sharp and insistent, like an alarm bell going off. Daniel straightened, eyes narrowing. Late for what? The man just chuckled and leaned back, closing his eyes like the conversation was over. Daniel's pulse raced. His brain worked overtime, connecting dots. Emma's whispered warning. The note in the woods. For PM, don't screw this up. The second target, Lily. And now this man sitting there like he knew a secret the rest of them hadn't figured out yet. Max let out a sharp bark, startling Daniel. Max, what is it? The dog's nose was in the air again, sniffing hard. His ears twitched, and he let out a deep, guttural growl. Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced down, an incoming call from the station. Brooks, he answered. The voice on the other end was tight, urgent. Daniel, we got a problem. A call just came in from a woman on the other side of town. She says her daughter's missing. Last seen near the park. Kid's name is Sophie, age 9. Daniel's heart stopped. 9 years old. Another girl. Max barked again, louder this time, pacing in tight circles. His entire body language screamed, we need to go now. Daniel's mind raced. This wasn't random. It wasn't just about Emma or Lily. There was a pattern, and they were behind. Tell her we're on it. Daniel snapped, shoving his phone into his pocket. He turned to Mills. Stay with the kids. Keep them close. We'll regroup after we check the park. Then to Max, let's roll, partner. The park was quiet when they arrived. Too quiet. The swings creaked softly in the breeze, and the fading sunlight cast long, dark shadows across the empty playground. Max jumped out of the cruiser the moment Daniel opened the door, his nose glued to the ground, sniffing in tight, urgent circles. Daniel scanned the area. Picnic tables, a jungle gym, a narrow path that snaked into a patch of woods. Max stopped suddenly, pawing at the dirt near the edge of the path. He barked, sharp and focused, then took off down the trail, pulling Daniel behind him. "Go, Max," Daniel urged, his boots crunching on fallen leaves. They ran, weaving through trees, Daniel's breath coming hard and fast. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. But underneath it, Daniel caught a faint, acrid scent, something metallic. Max barked again, louder now, and Daniel's stomach clenched when he saw it. A small pink sneaker lying half buried in the dirt. "Sophie," Daniel muttered, breathless. Max's nose hovered over the sneaker for a moment before he surged ahead, barking furiously. They burst into a small clearing, and there, half hidden behind a fallen log, was a backpack, pink, with a unicorn patch on the side. Max sniffed it, then barked again, tail rigid, body vibrating with tension. But there was no sign of Sophie, just a backpack, a few crushed leaves, and the unmistakable feeling that they were too late. Daniel knelt down, heart hammering, scanning the area. There, on the ground near the log, were deep boot prints leading away into the trees. Max let out a sharp warning bark, his body turning in the direction of the tracks. Daniel followed his gaze, and for a second, he thought he saw a shadow flicker between the trees. Just a flash of movement. There and gone. "Max, stay close," Daniel muttered, his hand tightening on the leash. The woods felt thicker now, darker, as if they were closing in. Daniel's radio crackled again. "Brooks, update." He pressed a button, voice tight. "Found a backpack. No sign of the girl yet. Continuing search on foot." Max's growl deepened, and Daniel followed him deeper into the woods. The trail twisted and turned, the boot prints fading in and out. It felt like they were chasing a ghost, like the shadows were playing tricks on them. Then, from up ahead, faint, almost like a whisper, came a soft cry. Daniel froze. Max stopped, too, ears up, tail high, body tense. The cry came again, soft, muffled, like someone trying to stay quiet but too scared to be silent. Max took off like a rocket. Daniel's heart leaped into his throat as he sprinted after the dog, crashing through the underbrush. They burst into another clearing, and there, huddled behind a tree, was a small figure. Sophie, her eyes wide and wet with tears, hands shaking, dirt streaked across her face. Max slowed, approaching her gently, his tail wagging low, ears soft. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her, voice shaking. "It's okay, sweetheart. We've got you. You're safe now." Sophie sobbed, throwing her arms around Max, burying her face in his fur. And for a brief, fleeting moment, Daniel let himself breathe. But deep down, he knew it wasn't over. This wasn't just about one kid or two. This was a pattern, a network, and someone was still out there, watching from the shadows, waiting for the next move. Night had fallen by the time Daniel and Max returned to the station, exhausted but not done. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of damp pavement and pine sap, the kind of night that made you feel like the world was holding its breath. Inside the squad room, the whiteboard was covered in scribbles. Names, times, locations. Emma, Lily, Sophie. Daniel stared at it, rubbing a tired hand over his face. 3 girls, all nearly taken, each by the same kind of man. Hoodie, cap, boots. The pieces were starting to fit, but the picture wasn't complete yet. Max lay by the door, his head on his paws, eyes half closed, but ears still twitching with every sound. He wasn't resting. Not really. Daniel knew that look. Max was waiting for the next move. Deputy Mills sat at the desk, typing up her notes. She looked up, her voice low. "You think we got them all?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, not even close." He stared at the whiteboard again, his gut twisted. "We're missing something." Just then his phone buzzed. A text message. Check the storage unit. 314 Westfield, code 3279. No name, no number. Just that. Daniel's pulse spiked. He looked at Max, who was already standing, tail high, ready. Let's go, boy. The drive to the storage facility was quick, but every second felt like it was stretched to a breaking point. The streets were dark, headlights slicing through the night. Max stood in the passenger seat, nose at the vent, body tense like a drawn bowstring. When they pulled up, the place was quiet, bathed in dim security lights. Rows of metal doors stretched out like a maze, silent and cold. Daniel parked, engine still humming, and glanced at Max. You ready for this? Max let out a soft woof, his tail giving a slow, steady wag. Just once. That was all Daniel needed. They stepped into the narrow aisle, boots crunching on gravel, flashlights sweeping across numbers until they found it. Unit 314. The padlock hung loose, unlatched. Daniel's stomach dropped. Someone wanted them to find this. He glanced at Max. The dog's ears were pinned forward, nose working overtime. All right, buddy, let's see what they left us. Daniel pushed the door up slowly, metal rattling in the stillness. The smell hit him first. Stale air, dust, and something sharper underneath. Max let out a low growl, stepping inside first, body low, tail straight like an arrow. Inside, boxes were stacked neatly along the walls, but it was the center of the room that made Daniel's breath catch. A folding table, and on it, folders, photographs, maps. It was a command center. Daniel moved closer, flipping through the files. Each folder had a name, a photo, Emma, Lily, Sophie, and at the bottom of the stack, new ones. 5 more names, 5 more faces. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Max barked, sharp and loud, as if trying to say, "Look, look." Daniel's eyes followed Max's to the corner of the unit, a crate half open, inside black duffel bags. He unzipped one, and his blood ran cold. Ropes, tape, disposable phones, syringes, a kidnapping kit. Max barked again, more urgent this time, pawing at the ground. Daniel knelt, sweeping the light across the floor, and there, scrawled in chalk, a single word, tonight. The pieces slammed together in Daniel's mind. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. Whoever they had in custody, he was small time. The real players were still out there, and they had a plan. Daniel grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Brooks. We got a storage unit. 314 Westfield. Evidence of multiple abductions. Possible organized ring. Requesting immediate backup. Secure perimeter." He turned to Max, who was pacing now, anxious energy vibrating through him. "Max, we got work to do." Back at the station, Daniel stood in front of the whiteboard again, the names burning into his brain. Emma, Lily, Sophie, 5 more. It was bigger than anyone thought. Max sat at his side, tail thumping quietly, a steady presence in the chaos. Daniel looked down at him, voice soft. "You saved them, Max. You found them. Without you, we wouldn't even know this was happening." Max blinked, then licked Daniel's hand, a simple, quiet gesture of loyalty. They sat in the stillness for a moment, just breathing, the weight of it all pressing down like a mountain. And then the phone rang. Daniel picked up, a voice on the other end calm, smooth, almost casual. "You're getting close, Officer Brooks, but you'll never stop all of it. We'll always be watching, and there's nothing you or that dog can do to stop it." Click. The line went dead. Daniel sat frozen for a moment, the words sinking in. Max stood, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest, teeth bared as if he understood every word. Daniel looked at him, jaw tight, eyes burning. "They're wrong, Max," he said quietly. "They're dead wrong." Thank you so much for following Max and Daniel's journey in this story. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, one loyal friend, a hero before pause, can change everything. What would you do if you had a partner like Max by your side? Would you have the courage to face the unknown? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.